Yo, what's up, Aluxas? Today we're diving deep into a book that's been making waves since it dropped in 2020, The Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed and Happiness by Morgan Housel. This isn't your typical finance book, trust me. Housel's not here to bore you with a bunch of math and charts. Nah, he's all about understanding the crazy ways people think and act when it comes to cold, hard cash. See, Housel knows that you can have all the financial knowledge in the world, but if you don't get how your own brain works, you're gonna make some seriously dumb moves with your money. That's why this book is so fire. It's like a deep dive into the psychology of wealth. Now, I know some of y'all might be thinking, why should I care about this stuff? I'm not some Wall Street hotshot. But hey, whether you're trying to stack your first mill or just trying to keep your head above water, understanding how money messes with your mind is key. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about making smart choices for the long haul. So today, we're going to break down 3 of the biggest lessons from Housel's book. These are the real gems, the insights that'll stick with you long after you've closed the cover. First up, we've got the idea that when it comes to financial decisions, your emotions are always going to trump cold, hard logic. You might think you're being all rational and stuff, but deep down, your feelings are pulling the strings. Next, we'll talk about how, if you want to survive in the money game, you got to have a thick safety net. It's not about taking crazy risks and praying for the best. It's about being smart and prepared for when things go sideways. And finally, we'll dive into how your past experiences with money shape how you deal with it today. Whether you grew up broke or born with a silver spoon, those early lessons stick with you, for better or worse. So sit tight, grab a notepad, and get ready to have your mind blown. The psychology of money is about to drop some serious knowledge on you. Let's kick things off with the first big insight from the book. When it comes to making financial decisions, your emotions are always going to be in the driver's seat, no matter how much you try to pretend otherwise. To really drive this point home, Housel hits us with the story of Harry Markowitz, the OG of modern portfolio theory. This dude was like the godfather of smart investing, coming up with all these complex mathematical models to help people figure out the perfect mix of investments to maximize their returns and minimize their risks. Markowitz's theories were groundbreaking, and they pretty much birthed the entire industry of quantitative finance. Before him, investing was seen as more of an art than a science. But Markowitz showed that by crunching the numbers, you could come up with an optimal portfolio for any given level of risk tolerance. So you'd think that a genius like Markowitz would have the most baller, carefully calculated investment portfolio himself, right? Wrong. When asked about his own investments, Markowitz straight up said, "I visualized my grief if the stock market went way up and I wasn't in it, or if it went way down and I was completely in it. So I split my contributions 50-50 between stocks and bonds." Whoa, hold up. The father of portfolio optimization himself was using a simple 50-50 split? What happened to all those fancy-schmancy equations and models? The truth is, even for a brilliant mind like Markowitz, the emotional pain of potential loss or missed gains was too powerful to ignore. He knew that no matter what the math said, he needed an investment strategy that would let him sleep at night. And that's the key takeaway here, folks. You can have all the financial knowledge in the world, but if your investment strategy doesn't jive with your emotional wiring, you're gonna have a bad time. It's like Buffett says, if you can't sleep at night because of your investments, you've invested too much in the market. The Oracle of Omaha himself is willing to leave some potential returns on the table for the sake of his emotional well-being. That's how important it is. But here's the thing. It's not just about avoiding investments that stress you out. It's also about leaning into the ones that genuinely excite you. Think about it this way. If you're putting your hard-earned cash into something that bores you to tears, how likely are you to stick with it when the going gets tough? When the market takes a nosedive, are you really going to have the discipline to hold on if you never cared about the investment in the first place? On the flip side, if you're investing in something that lights your fire, something that aligns with your passions and values, you're way more likely to stay the course, even if the short-term returns aren't anything to write home about. You'll be more inclined to keep your money in the game because you believe in what you're backing. Housel gives the example of an investor who puts most of their dough in index funds, but also sets aside a little play money to buy individual stocks in companies they're stoked about. Maybe they're not expecting to beat the market with these picks, but the thrill of researching and choosing these stocks keeps them engaged with their investments in a way that an all-index portfolio never could. The point is, your investment strategy has to resonate with you on a gut level. It has to be something you can get behind, not just intellectually, but emotionally. Because when push comes to shove, it's your emotions that are going to dictate your behavior. So don't just chase returns or follow the herd. Take the time to figure out what really matters to you. What kind of investments make you feel good about your money and your future? That's the foundation of an investment approach you can stick with for the long haul. But wait, you might be thinking, what's the point of sticking with an investment strategy if it's not delivering outsized returns? Why bother staying the course if you're not getting rich quick? Well, my friend, that brings us to the second big lesson from the book. The real key to investment success isn't hitting home runs, it's staying in the game. See, here's the thing about investing. The longer you're in the market, the better your odds of coming out ahead. It's not about timing the market perfectly or always picking the hottest stocks. It's about consistency and persistence. Let's break it down with some cold, hard facts. Housel cites a study that looked at the probability of making money in the US stock market over various time frames. If you invested for just one day, it was basically a coin flip, a 50-50 shot of coming out ahead. But if you held on for a year, your odds of turning a profit jumped to 68%. And if you had the patience to let your money ride for a whole decade, your chances of success shot up to a whopping 88%. The lesson here is clear. Time is your secret weapon when it comes to investing. The longer your time horizon, the more the odds tilt in your favor. But here's the catch. You only get to take advantage of those juicy long-term gains if you actually stay invested. If you're constantly hopping in and out of the market, chasing the latest hot stock tip or bailing at the first sign of turbulence, you're short-circuiting your own success. That's why having an investment approach that you believe in, that aligns with your values and goals, is so crucial. Because when the going gets tough, and it always does, sooner or later, that emotional connection is what's going to give you the strength to stay the course. Housel drives this point home with a powerful analogy. He asks us to imagine planting an oak tree sapling. In the first year, you might not see much growth above ground, but beneath the surface, the roots are spreading out, establishing a strong foundation. As the years go by, the tree slowly but surely starts to reach for the sky. And then, decades later, you've got a mighty oak on your hands, a towering testament to the power of patience and persistence. Investing is the same way. In the short term, your returns might be underwhelming. You might even face some painful losses. But if you can keep your eye on the long game, if you can stay rooted in your strategy, even when the market storms are raging, you give yourself the best shot at achieving towering success. So don't get discouraged if you're not seeing massive gains right out of the gate. Don't let short-term volatility shake your resolve. Just keep your head down, stay focused on your goals, and trust that time is on your side. Because in the end, the most successful investors aren't necessarily the smartest or the most sophisticated. They're the ones who can stay in the game the longest, who can ride out the ups and downs with steadfast discipline. But staying power isn't just about gritting your teeth and white-knuckling your way through market turbulence. It's also about giving yourself a wide margin of safety. And that's the third major insight Housel serves up in the book. When Housel talks about a margin of safety, he's not just talking about some abstract financial concept. He's talking about a way of thinking, a philosophy that permeates every aspect of your financial life. At its core, the margin of safety is about giving yourself room for error. It's about recognizing that no matter how smart you are, no matter how carefully you plan, life has a way of throwing curveballs. And if you don't have a buffer in place, those curveballs can knock you right out of the game. Think about it like this. If you're driving a car, you don't wait until you're a millimeter from the car in front of you to hit the brakes. You leave some space, some margin for error, so that if something unexpected happens, you have time to react. The same principle applies to investing and personal finance. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, with no emergency fund and no wiggle room in your budget, you're cruising for a bruising. One unexpected expense, one hiccup in your income, and you could find yourself in a world of hurt. But if you've built up a cushion, if you've got a healthy rainy day fund, if you're living below your means and saving diligently, you've given yourself that all-important margin of safety. You've got some breathing room to absorb life's inevitable shocks without being thrown too far off course. This isn't just about playing defense, though. Having a margin of safety can also give you the confidence to seize opportunities when they arise. Imagine you're considering investing in a company that you believe in, but the stock price is a little higher than you'd like. If you're stretched thin financially, you might not feel comfortable taking the risk, but if you've got a solid financial foundation, you can afford to take a chance, knowing that even if it doesn't pan out, you've got the resources to weather the storm. Housel illustrates this point beautifully with the story of Sequoia Capital's Michael Moritz. When asked about his firm's incredible success over the decades, Moritz didn't point to any particular investment or strategy. Instead, he emphasized the importance of longevity, of being able to stay in the game year after year, cycle after cycle. And the key to that longevity, you guessed it, a wide margin of safety. Moritz explained that Sequoia has always been careful to avoid investments that could put the firm's survival at risk, even if they offered the potential for outsized returns. By prioritizing stability over flash-in-the-pan gains, Sequoia has been able to navigate the ups and downs of the market for over 4 decades. That's the power of the margin of safety. It's not about being timid or risk-averse. It's about being strategic, about playing the long game. It's about recognizing that the biggest risk isn't missing out on the hottest investment opportunity. It's being forced out of the game entirely because you didn't give yourself enough room to maneuver. So how do you put this principle into practice? It starts with being conservative in your assumptions and projections. Don't count on best-case scenarios panning out. Build your plans around conservative, even pessimistic estimates. That way, if things do go better than expected, great, you've got some extra breathing room. But if they don't, you're not caught flat-footed. It also means being disciplined about saving and budgeting. Don't just spend every dollar that comes in. Make sure you're setting aside a healthy chunk for emergencies, for long-term goals, for investing in your future. And when you do invest, don't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. Do your due diligence, understand what you're getting into, and most importantly, only invest what you can afford to lose. That way, even if the worst happens, you're not putting your entire financial future at risk. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. I need to be emotionally invested in my strategy. I need to stay the course for the long haul, and I need to give myself a wide margin of safety. But how do I know what the right strategy is for me in the first place? Great question. And that brings us to the final major insight from Housel's book: the role that our personal experiences play in shaping our financial attitudes and behaviors. You see, we all like to think of ourselves as rational, objective decision-makers, but the truth is, our perspectives on money are deeply colored by our unique life experiences, especially those formative experiences we have when we're young. Housel points to a fascinating study by the National Bureau of Economic Research that looked at how people's exposure to different economic conditions in early adulthood affected their investing behavior later in life. The researchers found that people who came of age during periods of high inflation were less likely to invest in bonds later on, while those who entered adulthood during bull markets were more inclined to pile into stocks. In other words, the economic climate we experience in our formative years can have a profound and lasting impact on how we approach financial decisions. Housel illustrates this point with the story of legendary bond investor Bill Gross. Gross once remarked that if he had been born a decade earlier or later, he might never have gotten into the bond business at all. Why? Because Gross came of age in an era of falling interest rates, which made bonds look like an incredibly attractive investment. Had he been born into a different economic regime, he might have developed a very different perspective on the bond market. The point is, our personal histories shape our financial worldviews in powerful and often subconscious ways. The economic conditions we witness, the lessons we learn from our parents and peers, the triumphs and tragedies we experience, all of these factors come together to form our unique money mindsets. And understanding this can be incredibly valuable, both for making sense of our own behavior and for empathizing with others. When we encounter someone whose financial decisions seem irrational or misguided to us, it's tempting to write them off as foolish or ignorant. But if we take the time to consider the experiences that have shaped their perspective, we may find that their choices make a lot more sense. At the same time, recognizing the ways in which our own histories influence our financial attitudes can help us be more mindful and deliberate in our decision-making. We can't change our pasts, but we can strive to be aware of the biases and blind spots they may have instilled in us. And this awareness is especially crucial in times of economic upheaval and uncertainty. Housel notes that in the wake of financial crises, both individuals and institutions often exhibit what's known as a scar effect, a lingering conservatism and risk aversion that can persist for years after the initial shock. We saw this in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, when companies hoarded cash and households ramped up their savings rates. Even as the immediate danger passed, the psychological scars of the crisis continued to shape behavior for years to come. The same pattern has played out time and again throughout history, from the Great Depression to the dot-com bust to the Asian financial crisis of the late 1990s. In each case, the collective trauma of the event left a lasting imprint on the economic psyche, affecting everything from investment patterns to consumer spending to public policy. So what does this mean for us as individuals trying to navigate an uncertain world? It means that we need to be attuned to the ways in which our experiences and the experiences of those around us are shaping our responses to economic conditions. It means being patient and empathetic with ourselves and others as we work through the emotional fallout of financial shocks. It means recognizing that the road to recovery may be long and uneven, and that setbacks and relapses are a normal part of the process. But it also means being proactive in our efforts to adapt and evolve in the face of changing circumstances. Just as ecosystems adapt to new environmental pressures, so too must we be willing to update our mental models and strategies as the world around us shifts. That might mean diversifying our investments to build resilience in the face of uncertainty. It might mean being more conservative in our spending and saving habits to give ourselves a greater margin of error. It might mean seeking out new sources of income or investing in our own skills and adaptability. The key is to approach these challenges with a growth mindset, to see them not as threats to be feared, but as opportunities to learn, to stretch, to become stronger and wiser. And that, in the end, is perhaps the greatest lesson of the psychology of money. Yes, this book is full of valuable insights about the role of emotions in financial decision-making, the importance of a long-term perspective, the necessity of a margin of safety. But at its core, it's a book about the incredible adaptability and resilience of the human spirit. It's a reminder that no matter what challenges we face, no matter what traumas we endure, we have within us the capacity to learn, to grow, to triumph. So let us take these lessons to heart, my friends. Let us face the uncertain future with clear eyes and stout hearts, armed with the wisdom of those who have gone before us. Let us remember that wealth is about so much more than numbers on a balance sheet. It's about the richness of our relationships, the depth of our experiences, the strength of our character. And let us never forget that the greatest fortune we can build is not measured in dollars and cents, but in the love we share, the lives we touch, the legacy we leave behind. That is the true psychology of money, and it is a lesson that will serve us well in good times and bad, all the days of our lives. Thank you all for joining me on this journey through the pages of Housel's masterwork. I hope you found these insights as illuminating and empowering as I have.